The day has come. The final season of My Hero Academia is finally here. Let's just ignore how much Crunchyroll messed up by forgetting to actually upload the first episode on time. The only thing that matters is that Season 8 is here, and I am here to talk about it. If you are new here, hi, I am Jem, and I've read the entire MHA manga, but don't worry, I won't spoil any of the future events. I am here to review the episodes just as they are, because even if I know the end of the story, I am still experiencing the anime adaptation for the first time, just like all of you. With all of that said, let's go. Episode 1 is titled Toshinori Yagi Rising Origin. I'll address the elephant in the room first. Yes, the first half of the episode was a replay from Season 7 finale. To be fair, it's less of a complaint for Season 8 and more of a critique about Season 7. Back when Season 7 aired, I remember being very confused by the choice to end the season right in the middle of the fight between All Might and All For One. I firmly believe that season should have ended before the start of this fight, even if that would have made Season 7 even shorter. Because imagine the first episode of Season 8 just as it was, if we hadn't already seen half of it. I think it would have been the strongest season premiere of MHA of all time. If we isolate this episode from the context, it was as good as it could be. The pacing, the soundtrack, the emotion, and even the animation. Everything was on point. The episode starts with a mysterious scene where Deku is narrating about the events of this war as blossoms fall and we get to see someone's hands. As a manga reader, I can't say more about this scene if I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll just say that making this the first scene of Season 8 was a brilliant decision, and the scene was animated gorgeously. There's no point in dwelling on the recap part, but since I wasn't here on YouTube when Season 7 was airing, I'll quickly highlight my favorite things about that part. All Might saying that he's never once went into a fight thinking he was going to lose. All Might using Class 1-8 as inspiration for the suit, showing how much he improved as a teacher, to the point where now he knows everyone's quirks inside and out, as if they were his own. All Might trash-talking and disrespecting All For One. And All Might laughing like a maniac. The only slightly disappointing thing about this was that they didn't keep the manga translation of the line All Might said, but that's nitpicking on my part. With the recap done, we can move on to the actual new material of the final season of MHA. The fight continues, and while I believe that Horikoshi's art almost always looks better than the anime simply because it's insanely detailed, the animation was still great. We get a really cool shot of All Might's eyes from within the suit. It's a pretty classic shot that was popularized by the MCU, mostly Iron Man. It's not surprising since MHA, as a story, is an homage to Western superhero comics. It's worth mentioning how good the pacing of this fight is. You truly feel the tension, the never-ending attacks from All For One, and how All Might is barely keeping up, how he has no time to take a breath. The setting of the fight, which is the middle of a city, only adds to that. We get things like a chase in a narrow alleyway, or All For One breaking through a building and suddenly appearing in front of All Might. All of that makes this scene flow incredibly well. I also love the hypocrisy in everything All For One says. This whole fight started because his ego was too great, and yet he keeps repeating how he is not falling for All Might's plan, how he simply had time to spare. He could have easily already killed All Might, but he keeps toying with him instead of aiming for the head. All for One criticizes All Might for copying the quirks of children when he himself does nothing but steal the power from other people. All for One says that All Might is embarrassing himself by filming the fight, when it's the opposite. All Might is showing the world how a quirkless person is standing up to this demon lord. All for One lives so deeply inside his own head that he sees none of that reality, so I love how his dialogue serves a double purpose. Not only is it entertaining, but it also shows what kind of person he is. Next, we get the iconic shot of All Might protecting his ember, his light, and we get such a beautiful speech about light and how even if it goes out, someone else will receive that and shine. In early days of MHA, this metaphor was used for All Might and Deku, but as the story went on, this metaphor got expanded to include everyone. And in this episode, the example we are given is Aoyama. I really hope that people weren't disappointed that the All Might All for One fight was cut away to show Aoyama, because personally, I believe this was one of the strongest parts of the episode, which had multiple layers of payoff, so let's go through everything in order. Kunieda is relentlessly shaming Aoyama. If you go back to Season 7, to the very beginning of the final battle, when Kunieda started talking shit about Aoyama, the only thing he replied was "Merci." That moment is brought back here, when we are finally given the explanation for this reaction. By remembering his past mistakes, Aoyama can now try hard to become better. There are a few easy-to-miss details here. We get two shots that look very similar to All Might, one of Aoyama's eyes and one of his smile. In fact, in the manga, that smile was so similar to All Might that at first I didn't even understand that it was still Aoyama. Add these two shots to the whole conversation about light and what makes people shine brightly, and you get the core theme of this episode. Next, we have to talk about Hagakure. The scene where she appears and refracts the light was animated gorgeously. In my opinion, that was the standout animation moment of the whole episode, and I think it will be remembered even by the end of Season 8. Another easy-to-miss detail is how Hagakure called Aoyama a hero here. It's a full circle moment, from him calling himself a villain in Season 7 and Hagakure screaming at him about how could he even sit in class knowing what he did, to now, when Hagakure called Aoyama a hero as they trusted each other and worked together to save everyone. Then, very fittingly, we cut back to All Might's fight and his speech. I love how in that visual where he is nursing an ember, there's still no fire. Instead, the lights appear all around him. MHA has always put a huge emphasis on the bright future, on hope, on the next generation, and this visual captures all of that beautifully. All Might is an iconic character with plenty of iconic lines, and the thing he says next in this episode surely has to go into that list. I don't feel like I'm going to lose All for One. And why is that? That's because the next attack he uses is called none other but Can't Stop Twinkling. That was a genius move on the author's part to take the most ridiculous name and put it into such an epic moment. It was also a beautiful touch that while the quirks that All Might uses all belong to Class 1A, even Star and Stripe was included in a small way. It literally illustrates what All Might has been talking about throughout this entire episode. Even if Star and Stripe is gone, her light keeps shining through other people. I also love that All Might was beating All for One with the powers of people that All for One would call extras. Once again, it illustrates the difference in mentality of the heroes and the villains of MHA, of fighting together towards the same bright future versus fighting alone for selfish reasons. Another thing I have to mention before I forget is how All Might went from someone who used his power based on nothing but intuition to someone who's now more like Deku, analyzing each second of the fight and choosing the best tool out of the available toolbox, similar to how Deku now uses all his quirks together and in creative ways based on what's the best in any given situation. The scene briefly cuts away to a faraway country, where people are watching this fight on TV. I love how the difference in mentality was illustrated here. The grandma says this fight has nothing to do with them, but the kid, despite that, still clearly roots for All Might. I won't go into much detail, but this scene feels even better in retrospect. When we go back to the fight, the laser stops and we see that All for One is glowing. We are not given more information about that yet, but it surely feels like the fight switched to All for One's favor. At least, that is until we get a moment where hype was overflowing through the roof, and that is Stain joining the fight. Stain is a character where it doesn't matter if you love him or hate him, you can't deny his presence, and the way he pulled up to this fight is no different. While I absolutely love the manga and its art style, I must say that this specific shot is much better in the anime. The dark silhouette with glowing eyes and that eerie sound was a perfect recipe to end the episode. After the opening theme, there was also an end credit scene with Hagakure and Aoyama. In the manga, it was shown a bit earlier, but I think the anime made a good decision by showing it a bit later. I believe it made the episode flow a bit better. Also, it was just a very beautiful and a little bit bittersweet moment between Aoyama and Hagakure to end the episode in a more chill way after all the non-stop action and hype. When it comes to the opening sequence, I can't analyze it without giving away any manga spoilers. All I can say is that it really feels like the last opening of the series. The song takes a bit of time to grow on you, but once it does, I believe this opening will become one of the most beloved ones. In case you didn't know that already, the band is called Pornograffiti, the same band that did the very first opening of MHA. The Season 1 opening was called The Day, and in this opening for Season 8, the last line we hear is "The day has come," which we also heard in the first opening. It's a tiny detail, but I appreciate the effort and the attention to detail in the final season. We are literally witnessing the end of an era, which leads me nicely into my outro, because that's how the next episode is called. The End of an Era, and I'll be there to review it, and if you are interested, you can subscribe, and I hope to see you there as well.